Hello everyone, welcome to Out of Spec Guide. I'm Max, and if you watched the previous video on this channel, well, you'll know that I got a Polestar 2. To get that, I'm of course trading in my old car, my gasoline Mini, which is unfortunately a lease, so you're gonna have to figure that out. But this is a Mini Cooper S that I have owned and loved for the last 2 years. So let me talk in general for you guys, helpful advice about going from gas to electric, the things that I'm most looking forward to, and the fears I most have. All right, so let me just quickly guide you through the circumstances I have. This is a leased Mini Cooper S. It's the two-door, it's a hatchback. It's basically a really fun kind of city car. And I've had this since before I moved to Colorado, actually. I got it while I was finishing college. And I really enjoyed this car. I mean, I put my own like Michelin Pilot Sport all-season tires on it. I put the official Mini roof racks on it. I love the way it handles. It's, the classic Mini front-wheel drive transverse engine. This is the miniest Mini they sell currently. I think better in my opinion than the electric Mini because I just couldn't live with that with what I needed every day. So really enjoyed this, but between being on Out of Spec Guide, the lifestyle I have, getting to drive EVs, I realize that the benefits of them are really large. Now, not going to oversimplify it and say it makes sense for everyone to switch, but I do want in this video outline why I switched specifically, what some of those big differences are. And let's just talk the basics of driving, because when you think about the powertrain, it's something like this. I think it represents a lot of gas cars on the road today. It's a 2-liter turbocharged engine with an automatic start-stop, all features like that. This one's a 7-speed dual clutch. It's not even a manual. So if you're a car enthusiast, you love the sound of an engine, you love a manual, but I would argue that many cars like this are going more and more away from that enthusiast tone anyways. I mean, if you have the start-stop system, which by the way drives me crazy, I get why they're there, but it's annoying. You've got the dual clutch automatic, which just is always failing to bite, and it's just annoying in traffic. So you're dealing with the transmission. You've got like the brakes to deal with, like you do in a normal car. There's just all these things that I'm increasingly tired of on a gas car that are simpler on something like this Polestar I have here, which is electric. Mind the missing A-pillar. I mentioned that in the other video about this car. But I just like that on this, it's a single-speed electric drivetrain, and I don't have to ever worry about it shifting gears, missing a shift. Oh, the engine was, automatically stopped and had to restart in traffic for a light. Let that start again. Car herks and jerks. I mean, I get that some ICE cars are smoother and better at this than BMWs and Minis, but my point remains that this is a fundamental engineering just trademark of gas cars. Another thing about electric cars is that even though on this one I've got expensive Brembo brakes, I'm sure not going to be fun to replace. I think it'll be a while before I have to do that because a majority of the time in traffic, I'm using regenerative braking, where I lift off the accelerator and the car is actually running its motors backwards to basically generate electricity back into the battery. So this is just super cool. It's like, in my opinion, basically a hack for traffic. With something like this, mind the noise. We don't have our mics today, unfortunately. But it's basically a hack for traffic because it means you have so much less stress. You're typically really just modulating the accelerator pedal on and off, as opposed to something like this, where I'm always shifting it. And that's let alone in something like a manual where I'm managing 3 pedals. Now, if you like the engagement of a manual, fair enough. That's something you can only get with a gas car. That's something that this with an EV doesn't apply to me here because I have a 7-speed dual clutch with a paddle shift on the steering wheel. So it's not really a kind of driver engagement that I connected with anyways, but if that's something that you would connect with, definitely something to consider. Now, the other big elephant in the room I want to cover is mobility and range and charging. Everyone's biggest question about electric, because the thing you can't deny about this or any gas powertrain is it's not bad in terms of getting you places. You can always stop at a gas station, and while it may be expensive to fill up depending on the price of gas, whether your car has to take a premium like this one unfortunately does, you will get there. You'll have like a 5-minute stop. You know the gasoline pumps are going to work and read your credit card and do everything. Right now, with electric charging, we are, I think, past the days of people getting stranded and not being able to cross the country. Most major highways have lots of electric car chargers. The issue comes with getting the speed that you're supposed to get with your charge, getting sometimes your card authenticated. You have to use different activation methods like using Apple Wallet on your phone or the app for the charge point operator. It's a lot to manage, to be honest. And I'm a nerd, so this comes not to say naturally to me, but I've learned to do it. I work it out of spec. It's something I do every day. But it's something that I think for most of us average people takes a bit of a learning curve. Whereas this, it's how we've grown up driving cars, and it's definitely an element of mobility I'm gonna have to give up. That said, once I get a NEMA 1450, basically like a 240 volt dryer outlet in my house, installed in my garage, I'm gonna be able to charge this overnight at home like I would my phone. And that is gonna be really nice. That means I'm gonna start every day with close to a full charge, everything I need. And I can even schedule charging because it'll be a smart charger provided by Vivor sent us one, so can't wait to get that set up. But I wanted to address that point. That's something that we just have to be honest with. You are losing to gas right now. Gas is going to be more convenient for that. And also specifically a car like this that I have, a 2-liter turbocharged Mini Cooper, yes, these things are not inefficient. It's like, what, 35 mpg is what I've got over my 25-ish thousand miles driving this car. That's decent, And if you drive something like a Prius and you get 57 to 60 mpg, then you realistically on road trips not only are getting more convenience, you'd be paying less than you would to charge something like this, because when you're paying to charge at sites like Electrify America, all these fast chargers off the highway, that's when you're paying the highest rates for electricity. And like I said, if you get the Prius or you get the more efficient gas cars, the equation of cost actually starts to lean in their favor. Now, I'll reiterate, when you charge at home, not only is it convenient, but it's really cheap. Typically, some states like California, of course, have much higher power, so it depends on where you live, but it can be much cheaper, and that's where you like to see the big savings over gas. And then lastly, let's get to the big other elephant in the room of this video, overall cost. So this was not a cheap car. This was like a $35,000 car, at least it. This car new was like $70,000, but I got it used, appreciated. It was a rental. Hopefully it wasn't abused too badly, but I got it for $46,000. So heavily depreciated, and it's an EV. And now this is a bet I'm making. I'm not giving financial advice here, but hear me out here. We all know that more and more people are getting electric cars, and there's government regulations coming probably in the next 10 to 15 years for some states. They're going to slowly phase out sales of new gasoline cars, and perhaps gasoline cars are going to become less desirable for folks to drive. So as a result, I would feel less comfortable owning a car like this, much less, let's say, a Countryman or even more expensive Mini or any gas car, than I would an electric car. Because the electric car, from a raw resources perspective, has such a large battery pack. It has so many components that I think are more future-proofed and just going to hold the residual value better. Now, this is an open question. The reliability of various brands we have to see, but the longest term example we realistically have is, I think, let's say the Model S, which has been out for over a decade. And we're seeing that most of those cars do, up to 10 years, have pretty good battery life in terms of degradation. Degradation does happen on batteries in electric cars. It's something to look out for, but most manufacturers like Polestar are offering, I think, like 8-year powertrain battery warranties. So once you're out of those 8 to 10 years, are these cells going to start degrading quicker? We don't know. They're not going to explode. Nothing's dangerous is going to happen. But the question is, what's the real long-term viability, usable life of the battery? That will depend on the climate you live in. I think if folks if you live in North Carolina or a milder kind of temperate climate, might be easier. If you live in baking hot Texas or freezing winters of Colorado like we do, you might encounter harder conditions. If you keep your car in a garage, maybe EVs are even easier and it's going to last longer. Who knows? I mean, gas cars are also not immune to issues with big temperature swings. We all know engines can have trouble starting in the cold, things like that. So conditions will affect any car. I think they will affect electric cars. But my point here is that long term, I think financially, electric cars, between the lower maintenance on brakes and fuel savings, as well as just holding that residual value, I think makes it for me a smarter investment to make this car my next one, even though it's more expensive. I'm more comfortable with it because I feel like the total cost of ownership is going to hopefully be lower than it would be definitely for a lease. But even if I were financing a gas car, I just wouldn't be as comfortable making that investment. But these are my thoughts. Just going into this kind of big transition I'm making, I'm curious to hear what all of you think. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Do you have other points to consider? And what do you think of this journey? Share your own one. Are you switching right now? Are you considering the switch to electric or maybe a plug-in hybrid? Let us know. We've got an email in the description, and you can just write a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.